Aquele está morto.
I am Chad, and I am with Quentin Cobb. Is that right?
That's right.
Did I say that correct? Quentin Cobb, and you are a multiplayer Naughty Dog developer.
That's right. Right now I'm focused on multiplayer. I'm a designer. I've done work on the single player portion of Last of Us, but since Last of Us shipped, I've been focused on the multiplayer and the DLC.
That's good. I've done a really great job with it. The first question I want to ask you is, I know you get several questions from all kinds of different people and take in jubilee of stuff, and I've tried to read through some of them, but is there any question that you've wanted to be asked and you've never gotten asked before from anybody? Yes. Maybe you can think about it through the interview, because that's a big question. But I just want to give you like an open answer to whatever question that maybe we've just not asked you or forgotten about.
I'll think about it. All right. That is a tough one.
Okay. If someone has never tried the multiplayer for The Last of Us before, how would you describe it to them, and what makes it different than other multiplayers?
How I would describe it to someone, I would describe it as a really intense, sort of slower-paced multiplayer that really focuses on teamwork, and you're able to attack the other team with other than just bullets. You can use crafted items, you can use melee. It gives you a lot of options in the way you play the game, and it really sets itself apart from other multiplayer games in its pace, in its atmosphere, and its teamwork, and its focus on, a variety of weapons and crafting items and melee and lots of different strategy.
There is a lot of room for creativity in the multiplayer, I would think. Yeah. I guess that leads into another question of, since it's such a heavy team-based game, a lot of times people hop in with complete strangers. Are you surprised with how complete strangers interact towards a common goal? As team-based as this game is, or is there anything that they do that surprises you if you play with just like complete random people?
I'm surprised, I think, at when people are new to the game. It may take a few games for them to get the idea of teamwork and sticking with your team and watching your teammates back, flanking with them, working in unison, attacking at the same time without talking to each other. I think a lot of times people that are new to the game start to develop those sort of tactics and really, seeing the value of sticking with your team, watching different flanks and working together without talking, without planning. You just, as you play with people, you just know, okay, you're going to cover that way, I'm going to cover that way, and we got to stick together. So you can revive me. If I get shot, you revive me, I'll revive you, and we'll get the victory.
Boom. It's just like poetry in motion.
Yeah.
It's beautiful, and it happens really rarely, I guess, when people can't talk to each other, and they don't. But it's really something special that y'all have been able to put together. Now, we have recently had the new patch come out with all the DLC content, and it's way bigger than I ever thought it would be. I was like really impressed. I was thinking they'll add a couple of this, maybe a gun or two, but I was really surprised with all the stuff you've put in and been able to keep balance, I think, in the game. What was your intention? Did you want to reshape how the game was played when you put this out? What changes did you want to bring to the multiplayer?
Our goal really wasn't to change how the multiplayer was played. I think that may have been a slight side effect of the things we added. Mm-hmm. Really, we were trying to just add more variety, fill some gaps that we thought were there in the weapons and the boosters, and really just give players more options and more ways to create interesting and cool loadouts, have some automatic weapons in there. That was definitely the most challenging thing, was adding the Spectre and the Full Auto, which are both fully automatic weapons, and balancing those with every other gun that's semi-auto. We wanted to just give more of a variety and have more play styles available. I think with some of the boosters and the weapons, I think sort of aggressive attacking playstyle is you can take advantage of with the new items and new weapons, but we really tried to add more defensive, slower paced, stealthy skills and weapons like the Spectre, like Executioner. We buffed, I can't think of the name of the skill, the listen mode skill, that and made it a lot stronger so that you could use stealth and use listen mode more effectively, and that could be an even stronger tactic. So we really tried to balance the more aggressive, like bomb expert and those type of skills with like fortitude and some of the more defensive support skills and stealthy way to play.
That now makes a lot of sense to me. I did not see that at all until you just spelled it out for me.
Yeah.
that changes a lot of questions that I was planning on asking, actually.
Sure.
So let's do a buff like a softball here.
Okay.
I was going to ask this last, but what's your favorite loadout?
Let's see. You know what? I can't think of the exact loadout because I'm changing, trying different things, and when I mess around with skills and weapons and I add new things, when I play test, I always try crazy loadouts and different things all the time. I rarely kind of settle on one thing that I use a lot because I'm trying to test and try different things out often.
Yeah.
I would say my favorite, set of skills and weapons would probably be the Enforcer. I like the hunting rifle a lot. I'm not the best sniper, but it's challenging, and I know the maps really well. So if I can keep that distance, I really like the advantage the hunting rifle gives over weapons. So I like going Enforcer for close mid-range, hunting rifle for that long range and the challenge and the satisfaction of like nailing headshot, downing somebody with one hit. It's great. And I always gravitate back to Covert Training 2 and being stealthy. I hate being seen. Kind of the same with me in all competitive multiplayer games that I play. I always want to be as stealthy as possible and sneak around, and I hate the other people knowing where I'm at. I always gravitate towards Covert Training 2. And then it's a toss-up between probably agility and sharp ears. I want to move quickly. It's hard to fit all of those in, right? So I'd probably go Covert Training 2, agility, and then I love the double barrel. The double barrel, I think, is a great one-point purchase weapon that you can slam into loadouts and really dominate close range. So I can cover close range, mid-range with the Enforcer, and then long range with the sniper rifle and be stealthy all at the same time. That's probably my favorite thing to do.
Just a basic all-around kind of loadout that you can use for any kind of purpose.
Yeah.
Now, it's interesting. I guess that leads into another question I haven't written down. The number of loadout points did not increase in the new patch, but the number of options did. Was there any thought through game design maybe force people to try different styles? Because there are all those options. Maybe I see a lot less Covert 3 when I play now. And a lot less, not as many shotguns. Because these people have kind of gravitated away from that try-hard kind of set, I suppose.
Okay.
So was there any thought as to giving them the option to be creative and then also maybe kind of forcing it as far as the stacking of the perks themselves into the teamwork kind of style?
Yeah,
perks?
I think we wanted to design the new, bring in the new boosters, the new survival skills, the new weapons, bring them in, but not allow you to use all the same, same loadout, all the same stuff with the new stuff. It's all about choices and making difficult choices. I think that fits into the theme of the whole game, right? I mean, Last of Us single player is about difficult choices. So we wanted to make the choice of the guns and the survival skills matter. If everything was super cheap and you can just stack tons of skills and weapons all in one loadout, then making a choice isn't difficult. Everyone pick everything. So we wanted to, make it balanced and have the same weight as the shipped skills, but wanted to make them powerful and strong and make difficult choices. So we wanted to bring in all these new items and make it tough for people to ignore those things and say, hey, I really like my old loadout, my same old, revolver and these old skills, but man, these new skills are so awesome and will complement my gameplay style. I really want to incorporate those new items with my old loadout and make it like a super loadout. So that was my thinking there.
That is great. You did great work. All right, we'll talk about the maps, I suppose.
Yeah.
So would you, I guess, talk more about the different kind of play styles you were trying to foster in designing the new maps, both DLC 1 and DLC 2?
DLC 1, typically when we create maps, usually we'll have one designer and two artists basically create the map. When the designer sits down and works on a map, they'll have their own ideas and their own goals for that map. What we try to do is make the maps in each map pack or on disk have a variety, right? We want some long range, some close range, some different sort of play styles and sort of shapes and ideas between each map. When it comes down to making a specific map, it's really up to that designer. They'll work with an environment artist and a texture artist, and they'll all kind of collaborate to create the look and the feel of that map. So in DLC 1, I personally didn't create a map myself, but I actually definitely collaborated and helped with all the maps. I think really in that map pack, we were trying to just have a variety, have some longer range maps and some sort of closer range maps. So, it's daytime, nighttime, just really going for a variety and just making them fun, of course, overall, but sort of have a variety. There really isn't ever like, okay, we're going to make a map pack. Let's make it all long range and all snipers, all, everything. Everyone just uses, shotguns all the time. That's not really how it goes. It's like, well, let's pick the area that makes the most sense. We take areas from single player and we'll transfer over well and work well within the multiplayer world. And then okay, well, let's look at how can we make this an interesting map that's unique from the other maps in the pack, shape-wise, length-wise, have different elevations, all of those kind of things kind of come into play. So DLC 1, I think, turned out really great with hometown being at night and have a variety of close range and very level. And then, suburbs had that cool banked street with some really nice long sight lines, but close indoors. I think Bustyville is a beautiful map. It's real bright, great colors, and just looks amazing in it. But it has a nice variety, again, of some longer sight lines in the streets, but then, closer range in the buildings. Bookstore was really cool too, and that was, I think, definitely a more claustrophobic, closer range map that had that really cool, like, dual levels inside the bookstore. So, and then DLC 2, or actually technically 3, if Left Behind is DLC 2.
Oh, yeah.
And I can speak personally about Wharf as the map that I designed. Wharf, I was really wanting to sort of retain the single-player skeleton of the docks there by adding a lot of cool elements around the back of behind the boat, sort of the shantytown area and the office area. It was like all kind of new. Single player had that like container area, and then where the bus is, it's not in single player, but that's in multiplayer, like that whole area, and inside the warehouse was all kind of taken straight out of single player and rearranged a bit. But I really wanted Wharf to be, and it turned out to be, I thought, a really cool flanking, sneaking map where there's a lot of flank routes, a lot of interesting places to go and climb on. It ended up being a cool map that you can climb and get to a lot of places where typically in other maps you can't really climb up and get to a lot of areas, but I wanted Wharf to be as accessible as possible. If you can see that you can get up there, I wanted you to be able to get up there and make that work in gameplay, and also just be this crazy maze of different ways to go and be able to really benefit. Listen mode is great in Wharf. Flanking and sneaking is absolutely paramount. So that's kind of where I went with Wharf. The other maps, I can't speak to what the designer was thinking. They were designed by other people, but Coal Mine turned out was attempted to be a sort of spiritual successor to Lakeside. Is what Aaron Daly, the lead multiplayer designer, that's what he was going for with Coal Mine. And I thought, he did a great job of creating another map that had this sort of organic feel, a lot of natural elements instead of just buildings and sort of right angles. It had a lot of foliage and trees and rocks and mountainsides and different elevations. So I thought Coal Mine turned out really great. Was the other one? Water Tower was done by Elizabetta, another designer, and she did a great job of capturing like the Billstown feel. And it's kind of an interesting map because it's got like 3 lanes and it's kind of long. And it's just this kind of got these really cool narrow lanes on each side, and you can go through the middle a bit. I thought that turned out great. It's just an interesting variety of a map. And then Capital was done by Robert Ryan, another multiplayer designer, and he did a great job of capturing the feel of the single-player portion of the Capitol building, but also added a lot of elements and kind of rearranged a lot of buildings and added that slope, the center, like gondola area. Capitol became a really cool inside-outside map with the cool dual layers in the middle, but really I think captured the feel of the single player and some of the cool buildings and sort of gameplay elements from single player.
Yes, they're all really, really amazing maps, and I did not even know you designed Wharf or you were on that team, and that's how that works. It's funny that you said that it was supposed to be a maze because the first day it came out, we played that map, and I said just refer to the entire middle of the map as the maze. Mm-hmm. That's word for word. If you want to add some more to Wharf specifically, since you worked more on that, I'd like to hear more about, I guess, some of the difficulties you had in designing that map, maybe testing it out, some of the stuff you would change if you didn't like what it was going for.
Wharf initially, so when I sat down to create that map, I looked at, okay, I want to do a map on the docks from single player, and I just basically take that geometry from single player and create a multiplayer sort of level with just the same exact geometry. I start with just the base of the single player, everything that's there.
Yeah.
The first thing that I wanted to do was take the boat that's like in the water, but in single player it's raised up and you couldn't get on it. And actually, in previous iterations of that section of single player, it was actually playable long before the game came out. I wanted to lower the boat, allow you to go on it, allow you to run around on the boat and make it a playable part of the map. Well, what ended up happening is that boat is very small for multiplayer. The big difference between multiplayer and single player is that in multiplayer you can have lots of players, you can have up to 8 players all in one area running around.
Yeah.
So you need to sort of account for that and account for lots of space. We try to widen doorways, make things as wide as we can, so it allows multiple players to run in and out of. In single player you don't have to worry about that. It's just typically one guy or maybe an ally NPC and you just go through a normal sized doorway. And so the boat is cool for one person to run around on, but when you get a whole team up there running around and fighting and punching and doing all that stuff, it gets really packed and claustrophobic. So I initially tried to open it up, widen it a bit, and then I actually I copied that boat, added another boat to the back. So it was like one small boat and another boat to the back of the docks to allow you to go across from the two docks. It was just like a big gaping hole of water. And all that stuff was cool for a bit, but it just wasn't that great gameplay-wise because the boat was small and wasn't originally designed for that. So Andres Rodriguez, who is the environment artist on that level, tossed both of those boats and created from scratch that giant boat that's in there now with the mind for multiplayer for that map. So it works way 100 times better than the 2 tiny boats ever did because it was specifically designed for that area and for those 2 levels of the boat and the same gameplay that was on the previous iteration with thin walls, lots of space, lanes were wide that you can run up and down. So that was a difficult thing, and he made it much easier because he just made that whole boat, and it turned out really well. The other challenge was I was trying to create some sniper nests in that map. For a while, I struggled with, having high vantage points, being able to see a lot of the map. It ends up being very powerful, but a cool area. So in the small boat in the middle, before Andres made the larger boat, I let you get all the way on top of the boat, which was like literally next to the ceiling of the warehouse. And I was allowing you to see a lot of the map, and it was like a cool sniper perch. It was really interesting. It was really unique to that map. And it ended up being just too powerful, of course, because you're in the raised center of the map. So I ended up trying to block it off with like boards and block line of sight that you can only see small bits. And it just became like entirely too difficult to try to balance. I mean, almost no multiplayer map I can think of in any game has a sniper perch in the middle, straight up.
You can see everything.
Yeah. It doesn't work. So, I mean, I tried, and it didn't really work out, and I ended up trying to make, the other sniper perches that are there on top of the warehouse and that one on that little platform on the side. And those ended up being pretty cool. I went through a lot of iterations, but making sniper perches on a map was definitely challenging for me because you want it to be powerful, you want it to be a desirable area, but not an automatic win and not let you see the entire map and just dominate. So you have to kind of balance, well, what can you see? How can you get there? Are you vulnerable while you're there? Is it easy to take you out? All those things you have to take into account and balance when you make sniper perches, and that was definitely a learning experience and definitely challenging.
Yes, I can now see that it was. It was almost like a lockbox in of itself. To me, they encourage movement throughout the map.
Exactly.
So there are some spots in that map that are kind of like that. And now that you've seen people play your map, is there anything you would like to change of that map? Anything that happens that was unintended? I know that you can't control that.
Right.
And if you don't want to answer that question, it's a touchy question if you don't answer it.
Oh, no, it's not at all. Yeah. I haven't seen anything that I wish I had changed. I'm actually really happy with the way Warf turned out and watching people play. I mean, if anything, I would have loved to add more levels and more complexity. It's a high-level map. That's the kind of map that I like to play. I mean, if I were to do it again, I would love to add even more, open up some of the buildings in the container side and let you go into different warehouses and get on top of even more things and have more playable. That's what I would have liked to have done. But one thing that surprised me that people do, or at least did when the map first came out, there's that area in the container section that is like a raised scaffolding in the very back of the map. And I made that as like a cool path to go up and around, but when we would play it in the company, no one ever went up there. No one ever really hung out up there because people are constantly moving around and trying to, attack the other team. But online, people are playing more carefully, and I saw a lot of people use that area to like hide out, wait for a person to come to the box and jump out and shoot them. And it was like totally surprising. They got me because I was like, no one's ever up there. I'm just in the box. And it was super surprising to see people use that area sort of as I intended it, but just never saw people use it internally.
Yeah.
And people totally taking advantage of that kind of hiding spot. It worked out really well.
That's really cool that you get to design these things and you're going in and you're thinking, oh, I've got the advantage. I made the map. Yeah. And then they get you with your own trick. That's really good. That's really good. We were able to play whenever the DLC first came out a few times. I remember you being surprised when one of my friends used the double barrel and the shorty together in a combination because that was something that you've never seen before or something that didn't test it. Is there any other thing that you could think that's just surprising seeing many people play this thing that you created, and what specifically maybe they have done that's been surprising?
I would say one of the surprising things that we didn't sort of anticipate that ends up being a really cool strategy that I ended up using right after the launch, right after the game came out. There's a guy that makes YouTube videos that made a video about using a loadout to earn a bunch of parts and then switch to another loadout that has purchase weapons and purchasing a bunch of ammo for your purchase weapons. Something that we just never even thought of doing. That was probably one of the biggest surprises. I thought that was brilliant. I mess around with that and I use that occasionally and it's really fun. You know what? Before, people using the machete and then the pistol shotgun, the Shorty machete. Yeah. I had never seen that before until, a few months back or a while ago, and I thought that was brilliant of people just running up, hitting a guy once with the machete and then using the shorty. Never would have thought of that. I just, hey, you have the machete, you just boom, boom, chop them up. That kind of stuff is surprising and it's cool.
Super fast, yeah. There's tons of combinations and permutations of all the choices. You did make an alteration, speaking of the machete, to a 3-swipe. I heard that you wanted to give it a one-hit stick beater, but a lot of people think it may be weaker than you intended. Can you maybe just respond to people as they respond to what you've changed to the machete?
Yeah, the machete changes, we were attempting to, make the machete stronger by itself. It's difficult to compete with the upgraded 2x4 since it's a one-hit kill, but we wanted to try to make the machete at least have a chance. We made it so that you can interrupt the animation of the swing of the upgraded 2x4 and also, kill very quickly by itself. I think in that instance we succeeded in that if you took the old machete against the new 3-hit machete, it takes people out really fast. I think a side effect is that since one hit of the machete is doing less damage than one hit of the old 2-hit machete, it's more difficult to do the shorty machete or machete and another weapon now. I think it's one or the other. You know what I mean? We wouldn't be able to make the machete strong by itself and also strong with combination of another weapon, or it would be too strong. It's all about balance. And I think where we're at with the machete now, I personally think it's better. And I think if you wanted to hit somebody and then pull out a weapon, you can still hit them twice, almost as fast as one hit of the old machete and then pull out the shorty. So I still think it's possible. It's just slightly changed. It's just a decision that we had to make, and we wanted to make the machete stronger, and this is how we felt.
And still take away from the powerful shorty machete combination.
Yeah.
Essentially is what I'm trying to gather.
Yeah, I mean, our intention wasn't to make that weaker. We were trying to make the machete stronger. We weren't targeting, people use the machete incorrectly. That's not what our intention was. Our intention was to make the machete stronger by itself as a weapon, because other weapons don't need other weapons to be strong. Shotgun doesn't. You don't need to shotgun somebody and then use another weapon. We wanted to make the machete by itself strong. If you have the machete, it's going to be stronger than the old machete straight up. People that were using it as the machete shorty still can do it, but it's that wasn't our intention to make that worse in their eyes. We wanted to make the machete stronger.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for answering that. I guess we can get into weapons now.
Sure.
Since we're talking about weapons. The full auto rifle was just a free given weapon. Why was it added? Is it accomplishing what you hope it would have accomplished?
The full auto rifle was actually Aaron Daly's idea. He wanted to have a weapon that was kind of, in between the burst and the semi-auto and be very user-friendly, sort of an alternative to the burst rifle, but have more range. Yeah, and really the goal was it to be easy to use and user-friendly. He sort of set those parameters for me, and I created the full auto rifle. Yeah, I mean, my goal was just that, to make something that was automatic, slow, so it wasn't going to be more powerful than the other weapons, but fit a role of somebody that maybe isn't quite as good as hitting shots with the semi-auto or using the burst rifle and handling that kick, that can still get kills and do fairly well, but not completely dominate the other weapons. So it was kind of a lot of back and forth with rate of fire, with recoil, with how many bullets you got. I did a lot of balancing of that weapon, and really, I think it succeeded. I think we did a pretty good job of making a weapon exactly how we set it out to be. Easy to use, not dominating the other weapons, but still perform well. And it was great. There was a free weapon. It's easy for people to pick up and use and ease them into the game. I still feel that burst rifle and the semi-auto are far dominant to the full auto in really skilled high-level players' hands. The full autos can do well in a lot of situations at certain distances, and a lot of people in the office still use it and prefer it. And so I think when you have a lot of people that like one weapon, a lot of people still like different weapons, I think you succeeded in, as long as everyone's not gravitating towards one weapon and that's it. You have different play styles for different weapons. I think that's a success.
Yeah. I think it's really balanced. I think it's a really great weapon. I'm drawing from your answer that the purpose is to help the weaker players in the game compete better with the stronger players. One of the reasons, I suppose.
Yeah, I would say something like that. I mean, I think it was to help, either newer players or weaker players, or players that were having a hard time aiming. Having the semi-auto, single-shot weapons are pretty tough compared to automatic weapons. And the burst rifle can be difficult at longer ranges. So it was a weapon that was kind of a little bit easier to use than those two weapons, a little bit more user-friendly, just kind of filling that. And it's kind of pretty good at sort of a medium range. The burst is a little bit shorter, the semi is a little bit longer. It's kind of better at that medium range, and so it was kind of filling that gap a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, apologies for the weaker players.
Totally okay.
I was just trying to understand. Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to some of the other main weapons, the burst rifle and the hunting rifle. You buffed both of those, but nothing has been done to the bow specifically. So why do you think that the bow is balanced, and why has nothing been done to it?
Sure. The bow is a tough one, man. The thing about the bow is, in really skilled, awesome players, the bow is absolutely devastating. The bow can dominate and be just a weapon of mass destruction in the right hands. And if we were to make it stronger, we would make those players even stronger. We tested a lot of stuff in ways to make the bow better, more user-friendly, easier for people to use, and we just couldn't figure out a way to improve it and without making the players that are really good with it even better. We're definitely always looking at weapon balance, and we may revisit the bow and try to see if reduction in the upgrade costs or something along those lines would help. For now, we felt like bow is just kind of fitting its niche as a sort of high difficulty, sort of top tier weapon that a small amount of players use, but use it very, very well. So we decided to leave it.
I can completely understand that. While we're talking about the bow, can you give any bow tips from anybody trying to get better with it that you've seen these good players use that maybe they don't do?
Yeah, you know what? I'm not spectacular with the bow. I think, I would say my advice would be to, use it in certain situations. Use it in maps like High School or Wharf or sort of close range maps, and combine it with a stealth class. If you go bow, you're going to have a hard time going one-on-one straight up with another player with a weapon with bullets. So what you should focus on is stealth, flanking, and hitting people when they don't know you're there. If you're trying to use the bow and get the hang of it, I would say, if someone sees you and is attacking you straight on, run away, flank, try to get around players, and try to hit players that are unaware of where you're at. That is definitely the easiest way to get a kill with a bow, because a lot of times you get hit with a bow, you don't know where it came from, it's silent, and you're looking around for a bit. In the meantime, you can launch another arrow and take them down.
Yeah.
Sneaking and flanking, which is difficult to do. Not saying it's like an easy, like, oh, I'll just flank, it's no problem. It's definitely a difficult thing to do on the maps. I would say practice sneaking and flanking on the enemy team and using the bows. I mean, it's stealth. It's a stealth weapon. So, and also practice getting off 2 shots really fast. I think that the good players either, they're able to get headshots or they're able to just rip off 2 arrows real quick in rapid succession. So I would practice firing off 2 arrows instead of like lining up a shot, shooting, then lining up another shot slowly and shooting. Try to, upgrade the bow and then rip off 2 arrows.
Boom, boom, before they even know what happens, right? We're going to have to talk about the bow after this interview is done.
Sure.
I use it completely different than what you just described, so I want to, yeah. The launcher, why did you make it so expensive, and what role did you see the launcher playing in the game, and did it fill that role?
The launcher was definitely a tough weapon to create and balance. After a few iterations, I wanted the launcher to be a support weapon. I toyed around. I had never made it a one-hit kill weapon. When I first made it, I first was prototyping the weapon, I always had it a 2-hit kill. Talking with Aaron and other designers, it felt like if you were able to kill somebody, down somebody with one launcher, it wouldn't feel good in a game. You know what I mean? You're running and just a launch, a bomb just comes at you.
Mm-hmm.
The launcher and downs you real quick. So immediately what I wanted to do was take people out in 2 rounds, but make the reload slow, the travel speed and travel time of the launcher, kind of slow and not too powerful as far as you can just launch across the map. I didn't want that, but I wanted you to be able to hit people in cover. And I also wanted the people that, so if you're going against someone with a launcher and you get hit by it, you have time to run away or do some kind of action while they're reloading the launcher. That was my goal,
Mm-hmm.
instead of being able to just just launch 2 grenades at somebody and take him out without them being able to combat it. It's almost as bad as a one-hit kill. That was my design goal. I think I've reached that. And then as far as it being expensive and 4 loadout points, we were seeing that in the right hands, in very skilled players' hands, it's super deadly. And in certain situations, would just obliterate the other team. If they're huddled together, if they're in a small room, in certain situations, the launcher is just like, there's no contest. The launcher is just annihilating. And especially if there are more than one player on a team using the launcher. If you get 2 players or more with a launcher, it's just like, it's so difficult to combat that, in order to try to balance the weapon with everything else, that's why we made it 4 loadout points. That's why we made it, a little bit more expensive. It's actually less expensive than the military sniper as far as parts, but more expensive than all the other weapons. I wanted to make it a bit more expensive, but you do get 3 rounds per purchase, which is a lot. I wanted to make it a bit more expensive, a bit more costly, and just so that if you were putting the launcher in your loadout, you would be sacrificing other skills and other weapons.
Yep.
I think it did pretty well. I think some mixed reactions online when it first came out, because compared to other weapons, just straight up one-on-one, it's going to lose. It's very situational. It's a really different type of weapon. So I think in the right hands, in certain situations, it'd be very powerful. It's a great support weapon. I really like to combine it with, if I'm healing or I'm crafting or, reviving players and I'm kind of hanging back with my team, I can support and then launch and do damage to the other team, and it just works out really well.
Yep, stole all of the words right out of my head when you with that answer. It's almost like the purchasable bow, if in a way, in the sense that it's high level.
Yeah,
in the right hands.
Yeah, it is high level, and it's just not for players that are just going to go solo lone wolf, run out there and try to take on the enemy team by themselves. You have to use teamwork to be successful with it, and you have to use it in particular situations. I mean, one of the things I also did with it is it has some blend time on the aim, so that when you're running around with it, you can't just pull it up and shoot right away. You have to aim it, and it takes a second to focus in and then fire. So that I added that to prevent people from walking around and just firing off grenades at people, and surprising them. It has to be much more deliberate, a little bit slower.
I never considered that you purposely add these little tiny things that can totally take away a complete strategy out of a game. Speaking of parts, launcher is a very part-heavy kind of gun. You added Fortitude. How does that meld with First Aid 2 and 3? What's the point of having First Aid 2 and 3 when there's health kits everywhere all over the map? What's the main purpose if you're giving people so much incentive not to take the heals from their teammates if there's health kits, and then now points with Fortitude for healing?
Fortitude was really designed to help you survive longer while you were down. That was originally what it was designed. It was just like you would move faster while you're down, have more health, and be down for longer. And it ended up that just wasn't enough by itself as a booster. I went in and I was adding more things to that booster, more effects to just make it more attractive compared to the other skills.
Yeah.
I did work on Uncharted, that's why I'm calling things boosters. I wanted to make Fortitude more attractive, so I added those healing, getting parts while healing, and being able to carry more health kits. And it ended up being actually a really good sniper skill. So a sniper can kind of stay in one spot a little bit more, get to spawn with a health kit, and they can get parts for healing. I think it really helps snipers. And then if they get shot and they get down, they can survive longer, and usually the sniper is away from their team and allow their team to come and revive them. So it ended up being a really cool sort of sniper-friendly skill, and I think that worked out really well.
Well, that's something I learned. I need to try that on my sniper class.
There you go.
I have not yet done that. What was the purpose of changing the bleed out time, the whole bleed out thing? With you bleed out faster as you go on, and then the double hug for the revive. What was your thoughts behind that change in the game specifically?
Yeah, we did. We increased the time it takes to bleed out, or made it faster, right? Aaron Daly actually made this change, and I'm trying to think of exactly why. I mean, I think it had to do with, teams staying really close together and reviving people and having that sort of team that is like super close, even though teamwork is good and we want that, but a team that's staying super close and reviving teammates really fast and not allowing get it down and not allowing them, that down to actually count as a kill. I think that is what the purpose was. I think it was just to allow somebody to get down and actually get the kill, as opposed to the team like constantly reviving each other and massive beast of like 4 players moving around and like
blob.
A little blob, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that is kind of what it was, and again, I didn't personally make that change. I'm pretty sure that's what.
Yeah. That's something I've always wondered. I think I'm almost all out of questions. So, have you thought of the question that you've? Am I missing anything I should have asked? Because this is my first interview. And
sure.
Is there anything that you just want to discuss? Just free.
I'm trying to think. I think you asked a lot of really great questions. Good job, by the way.
Thank you.
Something that I'm always interested in talking about is, what you asked a lot of, is how and why something was developed and what the challenges were. Those are always, I think, something that I like to talk about, and how you arrived at the end point. What were the early iterations? What was your thinking? And so I think you covered all of that as far as the DLC and the stuff that I was involved in. Yeah.
Is there any iterations of any weapon or map you worked on that was just like completely awful? And what did you do? Was there the full auto rifle? Did you make it like a super assault rifle or something, or like some random thing that?
Yeah, you know what?
Was just terrible.
Sure, early iterations of the full auto were really strong. I had the rate of fire was really fast. The accuracy was just really tight accuracy, and that's kind of just where I started. I had to start somewhere, and it ended up just being just really strong, and I ended up really toning down the rate of fire and trying to find that balance of still be able to kill somebody but not too strong. But in the beginning, it was just mowing people down, and it was super tight accuracy, and everybody was using it and just owning each other and thinking about it, and seeing it.
Call of Duty.
Yeah, so it ended up being pretty rough, and just really took a lot of adjusting and iterations.
Yeah, right. Yeah. That was. I guess you talked about Fortitude and how you added parts. What made you think this is why this is so weak? Why you need to add the parts? The change. What brings about the decision of this is too weak or this is too strong? Is it just
Yeah, what we do every day, we play the game, and we play on either maps or with different features that we've added, and we have most of the company just jumps into matchmaking in a certain playlist, and we all play together, and then we'll all talk about it afterwards, either email or get together in a big group and talk about our experience and what we liked and didn't like. And I think, a lot of really great iterations come out of that. And I think with Fortitude, just wasn't being used. People didn't bother with it. And I think with Fortitude, just the stuff with moving faster while down and all that kind of stuff just wasn't being used. It wasn't as powerful as the rest of the skills. I think, after seeing that and seeing people talk about it and use it and not like it or not use it at all, we said, okay, let's add some more. Let's spice it up. Let's bump it up. Let's give it, a little bit more power. That's why it's so cheap. It's a 1 and 3 points, I think. So it's like a cheaper skill, and it's got a lot of aspects to it. So it came from that.
All right, I think we should probably wrap this up. I know I've taken tons more of your time than I didn't even think we would even last a whole hour. So if you have anything else to close with, have the floor, please.
No, thank you for interviewing me, and this is great, and I hope that your tournament goes well, and let us know, and we'll do what we can to. Sorry.
Big secret for now.
You control this audio. You can edit, right?
It's going to be really awesome, and I know y'all are like super busy and stretched with everything, but I really want to make like the best tournament ever for you guys.
Absolutely. So do your thing, and we'll do what we can to support it. But anyways, back on topic. This is a great interview. It's great to sit down and talk about multiplayer. As much as I can, I like to bring attention to the multiplayer aspect of the Naughty Dog games. It's a lot of attention is focused on single player, and I love to say, hey, we have multiplayer, and this is why it's great. And so it's great to sit down with people and talk about it, and hopefully we can do it again in the future.
Sounds great. We'll have to, I guess that wraps up the interview. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.